My name is Shipra Kayan, and I lead the design team here at Miro that builds features for meetings and workshops. So we build products and features to enable better workshops. And today, like this is kind of a workshop around mastering distributed design collaboration with Ethan Perry. Before I hand it over to Ethan, quick bio. Ethan Perry is a UX designer and researcher who has worked with international clients such as Seat, Melia Hotels, and Bulgari. He's part of a team of Adobe recommended facilitators that works closely with Adobe XD, where he's leading workshops for Fortune 500 companies worldwide. Perry's also the founder, this is really cool, of Todo de Diseña, a community for Spanish-speaking creatives and designers. And he's passionate also about education, which makes sense that he's teaching this workshop today. And currently is the co-director of the International Master in UX UI Design at Nucleo Digital School. So Perry teaches design and research at design and business schools, both in Barcelona and Lima. So over to you, Ethan. What I'm going to do is kind of just kind of add a link to the board for all the participants here, everyone here to join the workshop board, and hand it over to Ethan. Maybe Ethan, you could introduce yourself if I didn't do that fully and kind of get us started.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much, Shipra. Thank you. First and foremost, thanks to Miro for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone you're in. I am actually based in Barcelona, like Shipra mentioned. I'm a member, as she mentioned, I'm a member of a recommended team of Adobe facilitators. So I'm not an actual Adobe employee. However, I work very closely with everyone else, the users, Fortune 500 companies, mostly in the Spanish market because I'm the only one on my team who speaks Spanish. So also giving a workshop in my native language of English is always a treat. But I warn you, there may be a few words that sometimes I forget and I completely forget my native language. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But great, we're going to go ahead and get started. So everyone jump into the Mural board, please. But in terms of today's agenda, so we will definitely mention and talk about, and I'll show off the wonderful integration that Adobe XD has with Miro. But that's just one part. I really want this workshop to be hands-on. I want it to be interactive, and I want us to use this space together to have a conversation around distributed design and working remotely, and especially collaboration, and how we can better that process and learn from one another what works, what doesn't work, and understand and take a look at other people's design processes and get inspiration from one another. So first and foremost, we're going to do a little exercise. First, I'll give you some time to we'll get to know each other really briefly. Then we'll dive in and talk about design processes at each of your companies or where you work, or what your design processes have looked like in the past. What works, what doesn't work. So we'll talk about both. And then at the end, we'll talk all things collaboration with XD. So the share modes, I'll show you the different visualizations that you can do, co-editing, and then how can we take those features in Adobe XD and take it a step further with the Adobe XD for Miro integration, and how you can download that, what that looks like, and we'll show you some examples there. So I love kind of this dramatic unveiling, right? So in the workshops that I run, I usually do a progressive disclosure. So I'll unveil the things as we go through. But what I would like everyone to do as I unlock this first board here is I want to get to know you. And I don't know how many attendees we're at right now, but I wish I could give each and every one of you a minute to say, hi, my name is so-and-so, I work here, my design team is this big, but then would just eat up all of the workshop time introducing yourselves. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we have a very limited time. So what I would love for everyone to do is I will direct everyone to me. So we all are at the same spot here on the Mural board. And take a spot, fill out your name, like Shipra's doing right now. I want to know, fill out your name, where do you work, your specific role, how big is your design team roughly? Is it global? Just talk a little bit about the structure there. That's actually something that I'm really interested in. So spend a minute or two on that section. And then we got to keep this fun. We got to keep this light. I'm going to try to kill two birds with one stone. And I'd love to know a song on the soundtrack of your life. If you had to choose one, there might be multiple songs on the soundtrack of your life, but if you had to choose one song to represent you, it's Jose, Miguel, Kristen, Jack, Eric, what would it be? I'm also trying to get some more songs for to listen to. So two purposes here, getting to know you and building out my playlists. Let's just take a look here. We have a wide variety of teams. I see a lot of teams of one. I hear you, I see you. I know what that is like being on the design team of one. So we have Jack is, plus the team in Japan. Okay, great. So what else do we have here? UX designers, UX UI directors, senior service designers, senior learning designers, really neat. Kristen, love that. Epson Calabrio. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, Eric, I worked, well, before I got into UX design, I worked in PR and communications in San Francisco. And I believe our agency actually worked with Calabrio, if I'm not mistaken, but I have to go down memory lane to see if that's right or not. Training and content, directors, great, wonderful. And teams vary. So we have a team of 2, team of 1, about 30, depends on the project. Great, wonderful. Well, it's so nice to have all of you here. Welcome, 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 welcome. So we're gonna move on. What I really want us to talk about and just dive in a little bit is this whole COVID-19 pandemic has really shifted things for better or for worse. And more companies are going remote or have to go remote or have had to go remote and had to rethink how they do their work, how they do design, how they handle design, right? So many companies who maybe had design reviews and different exercises and put Post-its on walls, right, now need to think about this new normal. And especially with more and more companies having remote work as a competitive advantage, they need to think about how to do this with a distributed workforce where a design team may not be in the same city or country, but may be spread across multiple time zones. I actually read not too long ago, I believe it was Bain and Company, or one of the top consulting firms, recently announced that they would accept remote work. And overnight, all of the other big consulting agencies like Accenture and all the other big consulting agents overnight had to change. Ernst & Young, they all decided to adopt remote work because at the end of the day, individuals are going to choose those companies that allow people to work. So what I want us to do is, and this is great because I love how we have varied teams. So I assume the processes are gonna be fairly similar, but they're also going to vary. So what I want everyone to do is to take over on the right. I just unlocked the next series of boards. And so each person take a board here. And up at the top, I decided to, I'm gonna just bring everyone here to the first one. So this question of what does the design process look like for your company, a current project? If you don't want to talk about design process at your specific company and it's proprietary, think about just generally what the design process has been for you as you've worked in your career as a design director, UX UI, independent, whatever. And I have some Post-its there to get you started. Obviously, feel free to create your own, and I encourage you to do so. I have brief, mock-ups, prototyping, testing, emailing, meetings. We have plenty of meetings. We need less meetings. Documentation, asking for feedback, interviews. So you can use these on your board as kind of a starting point. But what I would love to see is in this bar down at the bottom, organize more or less, high level here, high level, and we look like Jose is number 1. So everyone go to your board because Jose's already taken number one, right? So create your process really high level. Feel free to add your own, but do this individually and think about what does your design process look like in a remote context, and try to illustrate that in a very high level journey. I would love for a volunteer to just kind of share what you talked about. What differences did you see between the processes? Any kind of realizations? I was talking, Aisha mentioned, it's very interesting. It was a very introspective kind of exercise, because I think more often than not, if we're in design or if we're even in instructional design or product design, what have you, we have a process kind of clearly defined, or more or less what we're told. I don't want to say what we're told to do, but very set stages of design thinking, or whatever methodology you want to call it. And more often than not, it deviates from that quite a bit, right? So I hope this exercise was of value, and taking a few minutes. Obviously, I encourage you to go after this workshop to really think it out and think about all the different ways you can improve. But anyone want to share kind of what they discussed, any findings, any comments before we move on?
I could share something. I spoke with Christopher Palermo, who is actually like not a designer. He's like a product manager, works with data products. And what was really interesting was that his design process was very similar to a design process. And I was like, yeah, this is like the same as mine. And what we actually ended up talking about was how do you build the right team to execute? Like, how do you put together a team?
And what did you come up with? How do you build that team?
Still a work in progress.
still TBD.
Yes.
Still TBD.
The context was we're currently working on re-envisioning how users engage with data, and the users in this case are other business functions. And so we're working on building a team to make sure we can start bringing those things to life and tell a story with data. And so Shipra and I had a very nice conversation about how we can better set up collaborative methods to allow that type of engagement.
Great. No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
We had a lot of discussions around once the design is finalized, where what the process looks like for edits, and where those edits might come from. We both work in technical environments, but when stakeholders have edits, it might look a different way than when a development team comes to you with a problem for how the product is being developed, and if that's going to be more expensive or whatever, and if you need to make edits to the design at that point. So yeah, it was interesting to hear different approaches for the different types of edits you might get.
Very true. It's a design. I always like to say there's no such thing really as a final design, right? Kind of act under that, because edits will come. You're always going to be iterating. You're always going to be improving based on feedback. So where do those edits come from? That's a great conversation. And how does that fit into the process? How do you incorporate that kind of feedback loop in? For sure.
We talked about how there's a lot of meetings that happen between all of the steps that kind of slow things down. And then we also talked about the persona part of it, how we're lucky to get that part into the whole design process and keep it throughout. Sometimes when you want to move fast, that persona kind of gets dropped off the table, and so how important that is.
Keep that front and center. Okay. Meetings. Yes. How many meetings? I saw someone here in one of their processes put like a meeting after each step. Well, great. Let's move on. But again, I do encourage you as kind of your homework afterwards to constantly be thinking about and revisiting how you can improve your design process, and think about especially in this distributed context, right? So thinking about, I'm not just saying from a tooling perspective, but really thinking about, is that meeting necessary? How do you facilitate that collaboration? And really thinking about different opportunities that can come from that. And that's actually going to be a part of the next, that segues perfectly into the next exercise I'm going to have everyone do. So we're going to keep moving along. This board here, feel free to go off of the board. We had a wonderful designer design it, and I realized it may be a little bit small. So feel free, you have the canvas space around it. The world is yours to there. But what I want us to do, for those of you who may not be familiar with this exercise, and I didn't draw that, by the way, it's definitely clip art. I am not an artist. For those of you who might not be familiar with the design sprint, there's a retrospective activity, which is called the Sailboat. And I think it's a great way to really reflect on anything. So everything below the water and where we have that little small anchor there is holding us back. It's keeping us from moving forward, as really progressing as and collaborating as a distributed design team. What are those things that are holding us back? Maybe it is a meeting, maybe it's something else, but what are those things that are holding us back? And then at the top are what's working, what seems to be working well, what should we do more of in order to keep us going, moving in the right direction, right? So before we tackle both at once, I want us to focus on everyone individually. Use some Post-its. You can just use it from where you get Post-its on in the tool on the left-hand side, and come up with as many ideas as you can, holding you back from you doing your work in a distributed setting or in a design process as a whole. As you're working on something, what is it that's holding you back from accomplishing your task? More on a positive note, so let's talk about the negatives first. What did you put down? I mean, I can see them here, but who would like to share kind of what some of the what kind of challenges they've come across? Have any volunteers?
Sure, I'm here.
Hey, Jose.
Yeah, I guess the for me, or maybe for our team, the big issue is a clear brief. And sometimes this is an issue for accounts, because the thing is, the clients sometimes don't know what they're looking for, and the account team understand in their own bios what they think is the client need, but this is not totally true. And maybe we need to define the goals for the client, the target user, the scope of works, deliverables, I guess it's important. Also, the timelines sometimes don't respect the usual dates for starting the research and then complete the testing. And for me personally, the documentation process, I guess is we spend a lot of time, especially for the development team, to create documentation, and sometimes the client even see the documentation. They just looking for sales or a cool website, and no matter it's in desktop is great, but in mobile is useful.
Anyone else here in the chat? Let us know. In my agency days, actually, most of my professional experience has been in agencies. And Jose, I know what that's like, especially from a briefing perspective, when the brief, more often than not, well, it obviously depends on the client. It always depends on the client, but more often than not, it's create a cool looking website or a well-designed website, right? And then once you really dive in and understand why they really need it, the brief constantly is changing, and it can be quite frustrating. Great, anyone else? I see a sticky note here that says no product manager. Who wrote that?
Oh man, I wrote that. It's just like top of mind,
Sure.
like I'm working up project without a product manager. And I'm like, you know, as a designer, we feel like, you know, let's make all the decisions. There's no product manager, but like I'm really feeling, yeah, the gap in gap in that skill set.
Let's see what else. Not enough design staff follow up. Everything is a group decision. Lining on priorities. Working meetings. Let's see, I'm here to zoom in a little bit. All project discussions have to be meetings. Yes. Can't have casual side conversations, lack natural flow. Okay, great. What seems to be working? I'm curious, who wrote, what's this no blame game? Who wrote about the no blame game?
Hey, Ethan, I wrote that, Saisha. I think that's something good that we've noticed in our teams is when you're asking for pain points or when you're asking for what's not working, there isn't like there isn't the blame game of saying, well, this person worked on it before I did and they messed it up and you know it's all their fault. There isn't any of that. There's a lot of what we're seeing is there's a lot of transparency to just make things better. And so that was one of the good things.
Jack, I noticed you raised your hand earlier. I don't know if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think in general, our organization is, I would say, on a journey towards design thinking, and we're on the start of the journey. There are big chunks of the organization that don't value it, don't resource for it. And so we often feel that we're kind of like the beacon of light, but just not enough support for the whole process. So a lot of what we spend time on is just convincing the organization that this stuff makes sense and trying to get their time.
And remind me, what team are you a part of that's kind of doing this evangelization, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm in an innovation team in a much bigger organization, Epson. And so it's a pretty complex environment.
Yeah. And what have you currently been doing to kind of shine that beacon of light? Is there anything particular that seems to maybe, I don't know, be moving that needle in the right direction in terms of getting that buy-in that you need?
Yeah, I think the best approach is, my biggest challenge is probably working with our colleagues in Japan. And the best approach is leading by example, and what we found actually to be very effective is to show them videos of target customers reacting to prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
That's really effective at getting buy-in.
No, yeah, I love that. I mean, I've worked a lot in, yes, that's another thing that I didn't realize in, I mean, we have a few Miro people here, but loving the reaction. So Shivra just actually hearted that when you said that. But I can't agree more on that. I've worked most of my career in banking. Not necessarily because it was my top choice and I thought that it was just a super exciting sector to work in, but I kind of got sucked in and I got experience in it and I've worked at different banks since then. But what's really seemed to work for us in that same light is it's one thing to put together a presentation, put together a beautifully designed Mural Board, putting together all of that and explaining in context of research what you found and the insights and how you're going to act on those insights and how they could provide more ROI for the company. And another thing is actually showing those interviews, of course, if you have the consent. But that's what we tried to do. And that really helps increase, for lack of better words, the design DNA at the company is, hey, Ethan's not just explaining this, but the person who's actually interacting with our product is.
Right. Right.
So I couldn't agree more on that. Let's see what else. We have some comments in here, and I'm not sure if it's Aymara who wrote everything about XD or someone's trying to. It's like I'm knowing that I work closely with XD, but I love the truth there in terms of co-editing. Pre-mortems. So I think we often talk about postmortems. Who wrote the sticky note about pre-mortems, and what is it that you do?
Oh yeah, I wrote that.
Shipra. I'm always like calling on Shipra. I just like I have no idea who wrote these.
Yeah, it's kind of like a postmortem, but you do it before the project. So you ask yourself, how might we fail? And then kind of, I think what I find is in sort of, especially in remote environments, there's fewer opportunities to like just bump into someone. And if someone's really anxious or nervous, which all of us are about every project, like it's hard for them to express it. And then they wait for a one-on-one with me to like be able to, so like the pre-mortem is a time where all of us can get all that anxiety out on a Miro board, and we can really talk about which ones we need to mitigate.
That's great. Yeah. So I think we often, I mean, we can always set ourselves up for, I think we can all try to do a better job at setting ourselves up for success. I think that obviously the postmortem is a common part of a design process. Is always afterwards, it's like, okay, where did we fall short? But I think what Shibra was just saying is great, where we think about, okay, like what is the context? What do we know going into it? Kind of what knowledge do we have that's readily available, and take some time ahead of the actual meeting or workshop session or what have you to think things through. And I think if we did that more often, then maybe we'd have less meetings and actually would go into the workshop with clear objectives and a clear sense of purpose of what we want to get out of it. If we just took a few minutes to actually think about it instead of diving right into whatever it is that we're doing. I think Shibra also wrote this, but I won't make you speak, but the strong design and engineering relationship, I also think that's important. And I think, I can't remember who it was who I jumped in and heard you talk a little bit about that, but really trying to bring as many different teams together is the more the merrier, right? So we have growing design team, open to sharing. So generally there seems to be this trend that people are more transparent. They're more open to trying tools such as Miro. Collaborating on digital assets is natural. Recruiting talent is easier when they can be remote, for sure. Stakeholder discussions can sometimes be more casual and frequent over Zoom. Research, co-editing, user flows, early prototyping, and collaboration. Wonderful. So in a similar light, I encourage you all to kind of think about that also in the context of your companies, and think about what works, what isn't working, make that assessment, and think about this often, right? This obviously over time, as your company evolves and gets further down that journey towards embracing wholeheartedly a kind of a design thinking approach and a user-centered approach, things are going to change, your priorities are going to change. So do a retrospective constantly, and think about all those different components as well. So what I want to do is shift gears a little bit, and we've talked about, and you've analyzed, you've taken a look at the process, design process of where you work, especially looking at, okay, what does our design team look like? What does that makeup like? Where is our design team? Where in the world is our design team, right? And what seems to be working and what isn't working? At a very high level, that's up until this point what we've discussed. And what I want to do is show you now, switch gears and talk about collaboration, specifically with Adobe XD, and also show off, of course, the integration that exists with Miro. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a quick second so I pull up XD. And give me just one second. XD, I love it because releases come out every month. And as I was doing this workshop, the latest version seemed to come out. I was like, how does Adobe know that I'm doing a workshop and I need Adobe XD? And right at this very moment, it updates. So I just actually finished updating the version to the latest version, which is version 41. And I need to actually just quickly close it again because like I said, I'm normally in Spanish. So I'm going to switch it to make sure we can all understand the language. And I don't have to translate in real time. All right. So I'm going to start sharing again now that I have this already open. Wanted to definitely make sure I was showing off a clean. Yes. Okay. Great. So this is Adobe XD. For those of you who may not have opened XD or used XD before, it really is a platform to design experiences end to end. So one of the common things that we say at the Adobe XD team is the design at the speed of thought, right? So really being able to design and create everything from a basic wireframe to then bringing life in and breathing life into it by making it an interactive prototype and then sharing it and sharing it with your stakeholders, but also with your dev team to kind of bring it to life. So this is not an XD training, but I do want to focus specifically on the collaboration features. So I'm going to open up a design that I've been working on for a fitness app. So here we have all these different screens, right? So we have an onboarding flow, we have all the different activities. It's a sports app. So you can track all of your different, it's like a social media, it's called Tractive. So you can add your different favorite activities, you can track, see your progress. And it's basically a social media sharing app of all the different great activities you're doing. And you can set goals and record all of your running and yoga and surfing, and also share images from all of your outdoor activities. So this is the app, but what I want to specifically share with you is the share mode. So when you have designs and you're ready to either share it with a stakeholder, a fellow colleague on your team, or are doing something like a usability test, once you have all your designs and once you have everything prototyped, what you do is you go to share mode. Pretty self-explanatory. And I have already linked some of these together in terms of prototype. So if I were to click on prototype, you can see all these spaghetti noodles linking things together. So I already have a flow established. And one way that you can share your prototype with others is up here at the top, you'll see a desktop preview. So it recreates, in this case, it is a mobile app. So again, it's the mobile dimensions, and it recreates that mobile experience, right? So I can interact with the prototype and go through the different onboarding screens, and it has different onboarding. So I can click on different things here. And I'm just going to skip through these. Can't remember where the trigger points are. There you go. So what I can do actually is up here at the top, I can record an MP4 video. And as I do so, we see this circle, and it allows me to click on things, and it will show up once I'm done as the option to save that video, and I can share it with others if they so desire. So that's just one way, but I do want to share with you kind of a I think in my personal opinion, and what I've used in my designs more is the share mode itself. So there are several different visualizations or ways to share your designs. So there's design review, which is basically at the bare bones is when you're wanting to try to get feedback from others. Development builds on the design review component, and also shares, and I'll show these in just a second, shows the specs for the devs, so at least they can get started. It's not going to be that they can completely run off and build your design, but they'll have a starting ground. Presentation and user testing actually are fairly similar in the way that it's presented. It's just a clean, sleek interface, and you can use it when you're presenting to stakeholders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a development link, and you can actually mark downloadable assets so that individuals can actually, like the developers can actually download the images that you use. So I'm going to create this link. Takes just a few seconds to create. And it's a public link that you can then share with whoever you need to share it with. So once that's ready, I'm going to go ahead and click that and bring it into screen here. Okay, and I apologize that my interface of Adobe Creative Cloud is in Spanish. I really tried to make it in English, but it keeps recognizing my computer settings, and so it is what it is, but I will explain things. It's pretty self-explanatory. So this is what the interface is like. So you have kind of two parts here. You have a comment section, so you can choose a pin, drop it wherever you want on the design. So maybe say, let's change this copy. And I'm gonna say, hey, Joanna, and I can tag Joanna, and it will, because she's a part of my organization, or I already have her email as a part of Adobe ID, then I'll just tag her and say, can you please change this text, right? And I'll click send. So then Joanna, she'll get notified via email, she'll get notified, and she can then respond and say, already done, and simply resolve the comment. So that's one way to start adding comments to the designs and start collecting feedback. So you can share that way and gather feedback. And this button here is when we enter into like what's referred to as specs mode, where we can see all of the different spacings between the different elements, and we can see the colors, the different font sizes, the width, the height, where it's positioned on the specific screen. We can go to a different screen here. We can see the different colors, all of the different character styles that are used, all of the different interactions specifically for that page. And when it comes to the colors, we can choose hexadecimal and the like. So this is great information. Like I said, it's not, they can't, the developers can't completely 100% run with this. But again, it's Adobe XD is constantly working on making that flow even more streamlined. So I'll share with you just one other quick visualization before I then show off the Miro plugin itself. So this is the presentation plugin, and basically it's the same as what I just showed you, but a lot cleaner in terms of there's nothing kind of crowding the interface. So then they can just simply interact with the prototype itself. So that's one way in terms of collaboration. And actually, before I before I talk about the Miro plugin, I want to actually first need to save this into the cloud. Adobe is really pushing the Creative Cloud. There's a lot of benefits to saving to the cloud. You can then access your documents wherever, as long as you have an internet connection. So I've already have it saved. Actually, I'm going to make sure I click save. Just double check because I had to reinstall, so it's kind of There we go. And so I can see the cloud icon there. Move the thing over. Okay. So it's saving. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite my colleague, Amara here, to co-edit with me. So once this saves, it's processing a lot. I have live workshop Miro opened. It's taking a second to save. There we go. So I'm going to invite my colleague Amara to co-edit so we can share with you what co-editing looks like briefly. So in order to do so, you need to be on the latest version. So you just simply make sure you're using in the latest version, which was updated today, 41.0.12.11 x64. And so I'm going to go up here to the top, and there will be this little blurb about coding where you can read more. But I'm going to invite Mara. I'll just send her a message saying hello. And go ahead and send that invite. The invite was really quick. You just saw like for, oh, 1 second, it's saving again. I want to just make sure. Okay. So there was a pop-up there. And so she should have just received an invite into her inbox. And once she goes ahead and clicks on that, she will be able to join us. And I want to actually make sure, that Amara is still here. I think that would be.
I'm here. I'm just
Okay.
waiting for it to load. I should be on shortly.
Okay. I was gonna check. I was like, oh, it's still. So co-editing is a great feature because it allows you all to work in the same document at the same time. So instead of sharing documents, sending them back and forth, I mean, you can have them all saved in the cloud. But it's really beneficial to just all jump in at the same document, and I can be working maybe on the onboarding flow while Amara is working, for example, on the activities. So as you can see, Amara just joined us. We can see her image that's associated with her Adobe ID. And then we can actually see her there with the live cursor. So feel free to delete things, Amara, do whatever you'd like, and we'll kind of follow you around. So as you can see, her color that's around her image matches with the colors of the items that she is selecting. So I can see where she's at, and I can go, and she vice versa sees my image that's associated with my Adobe ID as well. Great. So now we're coming to an end, but of course I want to share with you the plugin of Miro. So first and foremost, I'm going to actually ask Chipra or Joanna if you could please just add the link to the Mural Marketplace into the chat. That would be great.
Yeah.
All it is miro.com/marketplace. But what you need to do before you can start using XD in Miro, you need to download the app for your specific team and enable it for your specific team. So it is very straightforward. You need to make sure that you are the owner or have the permissions associated in order to make the decisions for that specific board and for that specific team. So here, if all you need to do is click on Get App, and it will prompt you to select a specific team. So I have a few teams here, and you will select the specific team and click Install and Authorize. Once that has taken place, you should then, I'll open back up again our Mural board that we're working on. Hopefully I didn't close out of it. Did I close out of it? I believe I did. 1 second. I'll just go back to the link in chat.
Yeah, I just pasted the link in chat.
Yeah, okay. There you go. I've got so many tabs open, I closed out of it. Okay, so here we are, back in our Mural board. And once you have Adobe XD, it will show up here, right? So after you've installed that, or you can click here, get more apps. That's another way you can look for it. You can actually drag it to your toolbar here. So just to make it even more convenient if you use XD frequently in Miro. So what I'm going to do is, again, I have my design here in XD. And I'm going to go to the share mode. I have this particular flow, and I'm going to create a link. So the way that this integration works is you create your designs and your artboards, and you can bring those very artboards into Miro. And some of you might be asking, well, why would you do that? One of, I think, the biggest benefits in working with this integration with Miro, especially when you're trying to work with so many different things, and especially stakeholders who may not be as familiar with design, right? So the collaboration features that I just showed you in XD work great if you're a designer, you get the Adobe Creative Cloud environment. But again, if you want to keep it even more streamlined and even simpler for stakeholders, bring it into Miro. And also, you can have everything in one place. So your designs can live next to your user journey, can live next to all of the research that you've collected in Miro, right? So it can be a one-stop shop, and you can have everything in context in one single Miro document. And so that's when I'm using the integration, I like to bring in my designs and have stakeholders actually review and add sticky notes and draw and use the pen tool to give feedback within Miro, because it helps to have that additional context. So now that I have this link created, I'm just going to simply click this link icon, the copy link here. Click on the XD tool here. And I actually already, I created a test flow. So it's going to be the exact same flow. Created a test flow earlier. Oops, hold on, sorry, I clicked that way too fast. So then it will load all of the different artboards. So I'm not going to bring all of them. I think there's 23. There's 23. So I'm just going to select these 5 and bring them in here to Miro. It's loading. Great. So then here we have these 5 artboards, and I'm just going to make them a little bit bigger. So they're still kind of processing, but we are able to now see all of these. And what I was mentioning earlier, you getting the pen tool and maybe saying, you know what, let's get rid of this image. Make this a little bit bigger and thicker. Let's get rid of this, right? And you can manually annotate, add some sticky notes, change this copy. And it's just a really easy, streamless way to have your designs, your artboards in here, and along with everything else, the research, user personas, it can be just one-stop shop. And what I want to share with you just real quick before I open up for a few last-minute questions, we may run over, I think, 5 minutes, so hopefully that's okay, is updating these designs, right? So instead of having to copy and paste things back in, I'm just going to really quickly share, like, for example, this color here. I go into design mode and change this color to, it's not going to look beautiful, but this kind of purple here, and change this as well, even though there's different drop shadows. I'm going to change this to a purple as well. Visually, looks interesting, but again, it's just to show example here. So
we're totally judging your design abilities.
Don't judge my designs. I'm not a designer, I'm a researcher. But what you do, hold on one second. It's still saving. There we go. Okay. Taking its time. It's tired. It's almost the weekend. All right.
Do you have to reshare it, or is saving it enough?
No, so what you do is you can just simply click this refresh artboard section and it will automatically refresh. It's just taking a long time to load, so it's not recognizing it right now.
Oh,
But that's how.
yeah, you don't need to update the share link
Oh.
in the file.
Sorry, Jose. Yes, you're right. I have to update the
Okay.
link. Jose knows XD better than I. I'm also ready for it. So yes, so once you have the link updated, of course, then it recognizes the changes that you've made, and then I can click the refresh, and it will change the color. Thank you, Jose. Perfect. Well, great. So that's the integration. I encourage you. I will also drop a link here in the chat. There's this great help article here that in case you kind of want some more documentation, this is from the Miro Help Center. So it talks about installing the plugin, uninstalling it, how to update your artboards, and any frequently asked questions that you might have. But again, my favorite use of this is to just bring in the all of the artboards in, have other individuals, particularly stakeholders who aren't as familiar with the Creative Cloud environment, to comment, scratch, doodle on things, add comments and sticky notes, and then take that feedback, update it, and also it can always live within the context of all of the other research and everything that we've done. So I want to end this workshop. Of course, I'll open it up for any other questions that people might have. I'm gonna reveal this content even though it's not like anything super like secretive. What I want to end with here, and you can click on that, and I might will actually put this link in the chat. I want to share with you an opportunity that's a very limited opportunity. So if you feel like your design team makes sense, if it makes sense for your design team, take a look at this leaflet. It's an XD Immersive. So prior to COVID, the Adobe XD team, we ran workshops, which were 3 2-hour we did a workshop in person that was 8 hours, and we worked with design teams to understand their design process, but where Adobe XD and tools like Miro can fit into that. Now we do it online. Since COVID has permitted travel, we can't travel as much. So we're a team of 15 individuals, and we cover EMEA, APAC, and we have 7, 15, 10 years experience in UX UI design. And this comes free to your company. So it's covered by Adobe. And it's really a workshop around understanding design systems, understanding design process at your company, and where XD can fit into that. So I encourage you to take a look at this pamphlet separately. And if you feel like you're a good fit, feel free to go ahead and fill out the application form, and someone from Adobe will get in contact with you. I'm just gonna say thanks. I can answer any questions now, but feel free as well. I left my contact information here. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. If you are a Spanish speaker or know of any Spanish speakers who are interested in the world of UX, UI design, like Shipra mentioned at the beginning, I created a community for Spanish-speaking designers and creatives. So you can find me on Instagram at todo.se.decena. All the information's there, and as well, I have a podcast on that, on UX, UI topics in Spanish as well.